So we go to the subject of today, which is the conquest of Mecca. This happened in the month of Ramadan, which we are now. So this is really more than just a study of Sirah. It happened that we got to this point. It's like the anniversary or the celebration of Fatah Makkah, which is a very important milestone in our Islamic history. And it happened in the 8th year of Hijrah. The conditions of Muslims at that time, Muslims were surrounded with enemies that were attacking them. And if you remember the Battle of the Trench, that pivotal battle where the enemies of Islam trying to bury Islam in Medina and annihilate Muslims forever, there were the co-conspirators organized by the Jewish tribes, and then the betrayal of the people of Quraysh, and later on the remaining people of Bani Nubayr. There were the Arabs of the desert of Ghatafan and Hawazin, the two largest tribes that declared animosity against Islam, that gathered about 6,000 fighters against Muslims in that battle. And then you have the arch enemy of Islam, Quraysh, the ones who rejected Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And all these three enemies were attacking Muslims from every direction. However, after they failed to wipe out Islam in multiple battles of Badr, Uhud, the trench battle, the Prophet's plan were to attack the enemy, to prevent further attacks and to protect the Muslim Ummah. So we see many of the goals and the objectives of the battles that followed the trench battle is to either retaliate or to discipline the tribes that participated in the trench battle or Ghazwat al-Ahzab. So we studied how Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam disciplined the Jewish tribes that were declaring animosity against Islam in the Battle of Khaybar. And then with Quraysh, they had this treaty. The Treaty of Al-Hudaybiyah, when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, remember in the 6th year of Hijrah, he went to do Umrah, and Quraysh prevented him from that, but they negotiated with him and they reached a treaty. And the treaty itself is very important in our study of the conquest of Mecca. The treaty goes as follows. The first thing that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam would return to Medina without performing Umrah. However, Muslims will be allowed in Mecca the next year for 3 days. There will be no war. There will be no war between the two groups, the two teams of the treaty for 10 years. That is Muslims and Quraysh. However, it allowed for more. He said, the event said that any tribe that want to join the alliance of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam would be allowed to do so and recognized by Quraysh as allies to Muslims. So those who decided to go with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the Muslims and become their allies, the treaty is applicable to them as much as it is applicable to the Muslims. Same thing was for Quraysh. If a tribe decided to ally itself with Quraysh, then that tribe will also enter into that treaty. So what happened is that tribe of Khuza'ah decided to join into the alliance of Muslims in that treaty. And the tribe of Bakr went with Quraysh. And that was the way it is. So there was a war between Bakr and Khuza'ah as much as there was a war between Quraysh and the Muslims. But when the treaty went into effect, then there should be peace between the two groups. And Khuza'ah and Bakr would become parts of Al-Hudaybiyah Treaty. Why is that important? Because there was an important event that happened in Sha'ban, in the month of Sha'ban of the 8th year of Hijrah. And what happened is a man from Bakr, and his name was Nawfal ibn Muawiyah. This Nawfal man had a revenge. He had to avenge an old problem with Khuza'ah, that his heart was still filled with that. They killed people in the old days before the treaty. Before the treaty was signed, Khuza'ah and Bakr were fighting against each other, and some people of Khuza'ah killed people of Bakr that are related to this man. So his heart was full with wanting revenge for the people that were killed, but he was not allowed to do that because of Al-Hudaybiyah Treaty. And one night in the month of Sha'ban, what happened was something called Watir, the Watir incident. Watir is the name of a well. People of Khuza'a were sleeping and praying at night around the water of Watir. And people of Bakr, led by this man, Nawfal bin Muawiyah, they ambushed them. And they raided them at night to take their revenge from Khuza'a. And the water of Watir is close to Mecca. And they wanted help from people around Mecca. Well, guess who's in Mecca? It's Quraysh. So they asked Quraysh for help. And some of the elite of Quraysh, the leaders of Quraysh, helped them and gave them support and gave them the weapons, some of the weapons that they can use in their raid against Khuza'a. And some of these people were Safwan ibn Umayyah, Suhail ibn Amr. You know Suhail ibn Amr that helped Bakr? He's the one that wrote, Jazakallah khair, he's the one that wrote the Hudaybiyah treaty himself. He's the one that was dictating to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam what should happen in Al-Hudaybiyah and how peace should prevail. He's the one that actually helped Bakr raid upon Khuza'a. And 20 deaths of Khuza'a that were taken by surprise. They were in a land where there was a peace treaty with the people of that land. They were around Mecca and with Bakr, and there should not be any attack on them. So they were not ready to fight. And they were taken and they were killed at night. 20 of them were killed. The rest of them were got up and they started running into Mecca. Because we know as we drew at the time of Hudaybiyah, there is that borders called Al-Haram, the sacred sanctuary of Mecca. Once you cross the borders into Mecca, then you should be safe. Nobody can kill you. Nobody can rob you. This is the sanctuary that is respected even by the pagans of Mecca. So they ran into Mecca and they ran through the streets of Mecca. And they said, we are in Haram. We are in the sanctuary. We are safe. They cannot follow us. They cannot kill us. And then Nawfal started chasing over them. Then the people of Bakr said, Nawfal, Al-Haram, Al-Haram, Ilahaka, Ilahak, your gods, it is the sanctuary. What are you doing? Sit. They got into the safe place. And then Nawfal, the criminal, said, La ilaha yakulakum al-yawma ya Bakr. Today you have no gods, Bakr. لَقَدْ كُنْتُمْ تَسْرُقُونَ فِي الْحَرَمِ. You used to steal in Haram. There were so many thieves among his tribe. He said, well, you steal in Haram. So why can't you take your revenge in Haram? أَفَلَا تُصِيبُونَ ثَأْرَكُمْ فِيهِ. And this is even against the pagans' beliefs. It's against the pagans' tradition, much less the Muslim and Ibrahimi tradition, Al-Hanif. So they followed Khuza'a and started killing them on the streets of Mecca with Quraysh watching. And they were chasing them until they got into the house of a man of Khuza'a that had a big house and a big estate in Mecca, and his name was Budayl ibn Warqa. Budayl ibn Warqa al-Khuza'i. They got into his house and they closed the gates and they were safe there. So what do they do now? Here they get slaughtered. This is a flagrant violation of this honourable treaty. And Quraysh participated actively, multiple ways. They provided the weapons, and they provided the sanctuary for Bakr, and then yet they allowed Bakr to continue chasing and killing Khuza'a in Mecca, in their own land. So Quraysh is not only guilty by association, it is guilty in action. It is guilty, Quraysh is guilty by participating in this heinous crime of Watir. So a man of Khuza'a ran to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And he, under night, he goes out and starts heading out to Medina. And his name was Amr ibn Salim. And then he rushed into Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in the masjid among Sahaba. And the way that he wanted to give him the message. Now, many Arabs were good poets, and poetry was like their media. And he knew if he recited a poet, then this scandal will travel even faster in Arabia, because people will be chanting that poet. And he started reciting that poet, saying the poetry instead of Rasulullah, in front of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we'll say a few of that in Arabic and then try to translate that. يا رب إني ناشد محمدا حلف أبينا وأبيه الأتلدا إن قريشا أخلفوك الموعدا ونقضوا ميثاقك المؤكدا وجعلوا لي في كداء رصدا وزعموا أن لست أدعو أحدا وهم أذل وأقل عددا هم بيتونا بالوتير سجدا وقتلونا ركعا وسجدا. What he is telling Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, Quraysh and Bakr have violated your oaths, have violated your treaty, have violated their promises, and they waited for us at the Qida, which is an area close to Watir, to that well, and they killed us while we were praying at night, because some of the people of Khuza'a were Muslims. Khuza'a, by their alliance with Muslims, they got exposed more to the Islam, and they were getting more into the religion, and more people of Khuza'a were entering into Islam. So Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, when he heard the words, he said only few words that gave a major hint to Sahaba, that a major